What is up, guys? So we have gotten sign off on the design. We made a couple of changes and I will show them to you on the computer in just a moment before we jump into this and get started here. But we only changed like the home page just a little bit, and I really think that was it. But we are going to start on the development today. So we're pushing it to development, but the first thing that we need to do today is we're going to get the whole project set up. So it's not going to be very complicated. We're going to be using Jekyll. It's going to be hosted on GitHub. And we're not going to worry about the forestry, at least I believe it's forestry. We're not going to worry about integrating that right now. We're going to actually do that after the site's developed. That way this is up and presentable as soon as possible. So today what we're going to do is we're going to set up the repository. We're going to download that. We're going to get the Jekyll project started, and then we're going to start customizing that and just get it ready and prepped for turning it into the design. So we're going to add in that Sass structure that we've been using in many of the Jekyll projects that we've had. I actually use this Sass structure in about every project that I work on where I use Sass. I just find it works very well and it's easier for me to keep things organized. So that's the goal for today. That's what we're going to try and get done really quickly. So let's go ahead and jump on into this. Alright guys, so I've got the design pulled up right here, and I feel like we actually changed a little bit more than I remembered. We changed the home page and we changed the layout of some of these pages, but we kept the structure of everything really, so it's not that different. And I'll pull this up so you can see it real quick. This is what the home page is going to look like on the desktop. So it's very, very simple and very minimal. And then these are the nav links right here. That's what it looks like when you hover it. We just wanted to kind of keep it the standard browser defaults for hovering. We might customize it a little bit, but we're not really sure yet. But anyways, I'll jump into the projects. And so this is what the projects are going to look like. We stripped out the logos because we're going to keep it a little more generic. And then as you click on these, each one of the visited projects is going to show up as like almost like a color swatch for that brand, whatever brand that was. And then when you're in here, this is very similar. We just modified this a little bit. So we're just going next and previous, and we redid the navigation here as well. But most of this is the same. Other than that, you've got information, which is his about page, which is the same structure for the most part, just minus a few items here. And then we have education, and education takes us to the design forum .us, which is another project that I did that I showed on this channel. At least I believe I showed it on this channel. And then the next thing is contact, and that's really just going to open up the native mailer with the contact already populated. So that's that, and let's look at the mobile real quick. It's also quite simple, and again we redid the navigation, so not much has changed here. We just got rid of one line. The navigation stays here. Up here is our the navigation hidden within the hamburger, so it can be accessed from either of these two. And the reason I want to keep that here is because I want to keep it, familiar across the whole website. So if we jump into projects, you'll see we've got this very similar layout. It's just broken down into two columns. Same concept of visited links will be highlighted and it'll look like a color swatch. We'll look into the project. We have previous, we have next, which we can do with Jekyll, so that'll be cool. And it just breaks and follows the layout that we had actually used earlier in the prior design that we did. So the next thing I'm going to pop up right here is we'll go over to information. So here I actually kind of flopped this a little bit. So I put the photos up first, and then we put the rest of his information here. I just think it might be a little more interesting since the site is already so stripped down and so simple. I feel like I really want to see these photos first, and then I'll scroll down to this additional content if I want to. And then the same idea for the next two is the education and contact. I mean, I say same idea, but it's just going to do the same thing. One's going to go to the designed form, and the other one is going to open up the native mailer. So that's really it. That is the changes. That is what we are going to do. So let's go ahead and get started on this. So I've got my GitHub open right here, and here's my repositories. And what we're going to do is we're going to start a new repository. So I just clicked on new. The page is loading. All right, so here we go. First thing we got to do is give it a name. I'm just going to name it DG, and then I'm going to give it a description of portfolio. That's fine. I'm not going to make it private. We can leave it public, and I'm just going to go ahead and create repository. I just want to get this done and get it down on my computer really quick. So I'm going to copy this right here, and then we're going to open up the terminal. So let's cd into desktop, and then we're going to do git clone. Git clone, and paste in that URL. And it's cloning that down. When that finishes, we'll be able to jump into it and set up the Jekyll project. All right, so that's there, that's done. It's just telling me I appear to have cloned an empty repository, but we already know that, so let's go ahead and cd into it. And I'll just print my working directory, and you can see I'm in desktop and in DG. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start a new Jekyll project. And typically how you would do this is you would type Jekyll new, and then you would type in the name of your project, and it would create a folder and put it in that folder. But I don't want to do that. I want it to be created within the folder I'm in right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in Jekyll new period, and then we're going to write a flag here called force, and that should, I might need to do that with sudo actually, but that should build it right here within my folder. I'll drag this over here. All right, so now that that's finished, I'm going to go ahead and hit ls so we can list everything in here, and you'll see now there is a bunch of files and folders in here, and it's no longer empty. And if we open this up here, you'll see all of this. So it did create that right within that folder. I think on my other computer I did that before. I actually had to run that with sudo, but give it a try, and just if it doesn't work, try it with sudo. So let's go ahead and get this Jekyll site running. So we're going to write bundle exec Jekyll serve, just like that. And it's going to start it up, and now it should be running on localhost port 4000. So we can actually do it right here. Localhost port 4000. There we go. Your awesome title. Welcome to Jekyll. The site's up. The site is done. It's there. It's not done, but it's running. We got to get it started. So I'm going to open up this folder in Atom. And let me bring this over here. All right. So we've got a few things here. Posts, we've got the config files, the index, about. It's everything that you currently saw here, but we're going to change all of that. We don't need most of that. So for now, we're going to get rid of posts. We don't need this. We're going to get rid of MD. I'm actually going to go ahead and get rid of the 404 error page. And then we're going to change this. Well, no, I'm not going to delete it. I'm just going to change it. So let's go ahead and rename this to HTML, because I just hate writing in Markdown. And good. All right. So let's leave this layout as home, because it is quite different from everything else. So I think that'll be fine. Let's go over here and come into our config.yaml. I'm going to delete all of this text. I don't need it. Let's see, your awesome site. Let's go ahead and give it a name. Email. I'm actually not sure what the email is right now. I'd have to go look it up. So we'll just leave that what it is. I'll leave the description what it is right now. We can change that later. Super simple. The URL for now is going to be HTTPS. It's going to be zacharynewton.github.io. Right, yep. Yeah, that's right. And then the base URL for now is going to be / DG, and this will change once we integrate the domain. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this GitHub username and Twitter username. We don't need that. And then we've got these build settings. So let's go ahead, get rid of the minima theme. We're not going to be using that. We'll leave the markdown as crammed down, even though I really don't think we're going to be using that either. One thing I do want to add is my markdown. So, well, not markdown, sorry, my permalinks. So we're going to write permalink pretty, and what that is going to do is it's going to remove that that really ugly extension that you know, the .html, whatever it is. It's just going to remove that, so it's going to be whatever the name of the file is without the extension. That was totally over explained, so but whatever. Let's go down here into do we want to do this in here? I don't know, I'll wait on that, but let's go ahead and we're gonna write Sass. Let's start setting that up. Let's set up the Sass directory, just like that, and that should be sufficient for what we need. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up a little bit, get rid of all the junk in here we don't really need. All right. And now we can go ahead and get started just a little bit. So we've got an index.html and it's using the layout of home, but we don't have that set up. So two of the default folders that Jekyll creates that you actually don't see here, but the theme is using, and that reminds me, let's remove the gem from here because we don't need that. That was the gem file. I just removed the minima theme. So like I was saying, two of the folders that it creates that you don't see here right now is underscore layouts and underscore includes. There are a few others, but those are the two big ones that we need to override. So to do that, we're going to create a new folder. And the first one, I'm just going to label layout. So it's underscore layout. Well, sorry, not layout. It's layouts, plural. And the next one is, let's make another folder here. It's underscore includes. So those are the two that we're going to do. So this is using the layout home. So we need a file in here called home.html. I'm not quite sure what this is going to be yet, but let's just get started. So typically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a simple HTML structure, and then I'm going to create an include for the head. So you have one place we're editing, and yeah, technically it could be one place that we're editing the head within the layout, but if you have multiple layouts, which you most likely will, then you would have to change on each one of those. So if we create the head as an include, then we can include that head into each one of the layouts. So anyways, let's actually go ahead and I changed my mind. This is not going to be called home. This is going to be called default. Don't hate me for it. And here we're just going to change this to default, just like that. So within here, we need to declare our doc type HTML, and we're just going to set this up and get just the generic stuff in here. So HTML, next one is head. The next one is body. So we've got that. Let's go ahead and indent this. And what we're going to do is we're going to include head.html, which does not exist yet. So if we looked, this would be throwing an error, except we haven't restarted it yet. So it hasn't made any of this take effect yet. So let's come over here to includes, create a new file, call it head.html. And in here, I am simply going to write title for now. title. And I think we have a title right here, so we're going to pull that into the head. So this is going to be site.title, just like that. So now let's actually come over here to our index page. And this is using this layout. Okay, so that's great, but how do we get what we write in the index page into here? We've got to come over here and we got to write content. So that's going to inject the content of any page using this layout right into the body. So let's go ahead and write h1, and let's write hello world. All right, and now we're going to come over here to a terminal and stop it. So for Mac, that's Control C, and then we're going to start it again, except we're going to run it with a couple flags. This time we're going to say watch and base URL, just like that. All right, let's go ahead to the page and refresh. And it worked. We have hello world. Let's see if we have any errors. And we have no errors. That is awesome. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to just set up our Sass a little bit and our assets. So let's go ahead and start with our assets first. I'm going to create a new folder in the root of the whole structure here called assets. And a thing to note here is the folders. The folders that have an underscore in front of it will be processed by Jekyll. And any folders that do not, and when I mean processed, I mean Jekyll will run through them and then it'll compile whatever it needs to compile, and then it'll place it inside of this site. This site folder here, this underscore site, is where your website will end up. So if you were going to host this somewhere, after you build your site, all you need to do is just grab the contents of this folder. Aside from that, anything that does not have an underscore in front of it, as far as folders go, it will take and just directly put right into here. That's fine. But another thing to note is if you are using front matter here in any of the files within a folder that does not have an underscore in it, Jekyll will run through that file, so that's fine. With that being said, let's go ahead and let's get started with setting up our CSS. So within assets, I'm going to create a few files here. I'm going to, a few folders. I'm actually going to create an images folder because we know we're going to need that. I'm going to create a JS folder because we may need that. And then I'm going to create my CSS folder. And inside of that CSS folder, we are actually going to create a file. And let's name this styles.sass. And yes, I said Sass because we're going to add some front matter here so that Jekyll runs through this. And it will compile it into CSS. And it will place that CSS file right here. So let's go ahead and write an import. And we're going to say import main. And I know I'm kind of doing this backwards, but just follow along with me for a minute. A lot of this setup, you're not going to see anything until we get it all done and over with. So just roll with me here. All right, so we're importing main. Great. Where is main? Main does not exist right now. But if we look at our config.yaml file, we'll say, hey, look, Sass, look in this directory. So that is the directory that we have to create right now. So I'm going to come up here, create a new folder, underscore Sass, and then within here, we are going to create a file. And that file is going to be main.sass. So what we've essentially done is we've told this file within our assets and CSS folder to import this file, but now it'll be rendered out into CSS right here. So this contains nothing. Yes, we could write all of our Sass right here in this one file, and that would work, but we are not going to do that. So what I do is I create 3 folders within this Sass folder. So the first one is base. The second one is modules. And the third one is layouts. Just like that. So the idea here is anything that applies to the whole site, or at least a vast majority of the site, will be placed in base. And so those are going to be things like just our general styles, and whether that's variables or whatever, it's typically variables, but just think site-wide styles are going to be put into base. Let's go jump down to modules, and let's figure out what's going to go into modules. Modules is really going to consist of any Sass, CSS Sass that constructs and is for anything that is a module. And by module, think of something like the navigation. I would consider that a module. So that would have its own Sass file, and that way it's just easy to find. You don't have to look through hundreds, thousands of lines of code. You can just see it right there, jump into it, and change that code. And then we've got layouts right down here. And so layouts is really going to be that in between of vastness and very specific files for your Sass. So this might be something like a whole pages Sass. I'll leave that one up to you. I'm more lenient on the layouts page. That kind of changes for me project to project, but the base and the modules really do stay the same like 99% of the time. So what we do need to do here is we are going to add files into these, but I want to try and keep this as simple as possible. So I'm going to create in here, I'm going to create a directory -base Sass file. Inside of this folder, I'm going to create a directory modules.sass file. And then inside of layouts, I'm going to create a directory layouts.sass file. And so essentially, whatever files I create in base, I'm going to import into this directory. Whatever files I create in modules, I will import into this directory. And whatever files I create in layouts, I will import into this directory. Now the next thing that we do need to do really quickly is import all of these directories. So we're going to import that into this file here, the main.sass. So I'm going to write @import, and then we're going to write the folder, just like that. And then we're going to write the file name without the extension. So it's going to be base. So that's what we're doing. Let's go ahead and change these real quick. Modules, and then this is going to be layouts, and this is going to be layouts. All right, and we do not need to put front matter at the top of these Sass files, any of them actually, because they are within this _Sass, which Jekyll is going to run through. And this needs to be a 2. All right, good. That should work. Let's go ahead and close all of these out real quick. And we're just going to do something quite simple here. I'm going to create a folder in here. No, I'm sorry, not a folder. I'm going to create a file in here, and let's go ahead and call this style.sass, and this is really going to be just our general list of styles for everything on the site. So this is really going to be where we're going to set up any of our variables that we're going to be using right in here. So this needs to be the absolute first thing that gets imported, because if it's not, and you're trying to use a variable and it hasn't technically been created yet, you're going to have an error and it's just not going to work. So I always do this one first. So let's come over here and we're going to write @import, and then I'm just going to write style, just like that. And to see if this is working, let's go ahead and write body, and then we'll say background pink, and let's see if that's working. It's not working. Let's go ahead and restart this. Oh, sorry. Totally forgot the reason it's not working. All right, we've got this done. Let's go ahead, and what we need to do is in our includes, we actually need to go ahead and import that style sheet. So this, let's open up includes. I'm getting a little ahead of myself there. Link, let's say style sheet, type, text CSS, and then href. So we're going to link to it here. So I'm going to write site dot base URL / assets / CSS / styles dot CSS. Now, like I mentioned before, yes, if you follow this path right now, it is .sass, but keep in mind, Jekyll will run through this file because of the front matter there, and inside of here, it turns into CSS. So now let's come back over here and refresh, and this should work. There it is. The background is pink. So let's just take one last quick look through this and see what we've got going on here. And I think that'll be about it, actually. One other thing I do want to add in here is a normalize. I just like getting rid of a lot of the default browser styles. So let's come to our base here, create a new file. I'm going to call this Normalize, if I can spell that, .sass. Let's import that. So at import normalize, just like that. And then I'm going to paste this Sass code in here that should, be some sort of browser reset for just a bunch of things. But anyways, that should do it there. Let's go ahead and refresh. So there you go. You see some of the styles have been changed. You can see that the text there is no longer the serif font. It is now a sans serif font. Let's go back to Atom real quick. And the one thing I did want to change here is I do actually want to swap the position of these, because I want to normalize this before I import all my styles, because I don't want to write all my styles and then have it normalize. It doesn't make sense to me. So anyways, that's pretty much everything we need here. We've got our Sass setup, which is really, in my opinion, the most complex part of this setup. We've got everything going here. Assets are there. The folder structure is ready to go. The config file is ready to go. I mean, we're going to be changing things. Well, not necessarily changing, but adding things here as we move forward. But this is a good start. One of the next things we'll get started on next week is actually adding in a lot of those meta tags into the head. And then once we get farther on in this project, we can add some analytics in there that I think I talked about in the first video. But that's it. All right, guys, that's it for this video. We got the repository set up. We started Jekyll. We started customizing that. We've got our Sass directories in there set up, how we are going to be using it. And we got to Hello World. So that's it for today. In the next video, we're going to start working on the home page because that just makes the most sense to start working on since it's the first thing that you see when you get to the website. So anyways, I'm excited for that. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. If it helped you, subscribe. And if you like the content that I'm creating on this channel, head on over to my Patreon account at patreon.com/Zachary R. Newton, where you can help support this channel and help me create better videos every week. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.